The capital slept beneath rain and lantern light. Golden rooftops shimmered beneath the storm, while shadows moved silently above them. One shadow in particular. Fast. Precise. Untouchable. Black robes cut through the night wind as the masked intruder leapt across the curved rooftops of the minister's estate without hesitation. His movements carried the calm certainty of a man who had done this 100 times before. Maybe more. Rain slid down the dark fabric stretched across his broad shoulders. His sleeves had been pushed back to his forearms, revealing rough skin, faded scars, and the powerful grip of hands more familiar with blades than mercy. Below him, guards patrolled the estate walls with lanterns and spears. None of them looked up. None of them noticed the shadow descending toward the western wing of the mansion. The intruder landed soundlessly on a narrow balcony, then stilled. A locked door. One breath. Two. The metal pin slid between his fingers. A soft click echoed through the dark, and the door opened. Inside, the room glowed faintly beneath dying candlelight. Rich silk curtains, carved wooden screens, golden embroidery, the room of someone born into wealth. The masked man stepped inside without a sound. His sharp eyes immediately scanned the shelves, the drawers, the writing desk. Searching. Always searching. Rainwater dripped quietly from the ends of his dark hair as he moved through the room with controlled impatience. Then, a floorboard creaked behind him. He turned instantly. A young woman stood near the doorway in pale, sleeping robes, frozen in shock. For one long second, neither of them moved. She had clearly not expected to find a masked stranger standing in her room in the middle of the night, and he had clearly not expected the room to be occupied. Her gaze flickered quickly over him. The black robes, the sword at his waist, the rain running slowly down the exposed skin of his throat. Danger seemed to cling to him like smoke. "Who are you?" she whispered. His eyes narrowed behind the mask. Instead of answering, he turned away and continued searching through the desk drawers, which only offended her further. "Excuse me." Still nothing. The woman stared at him in disbelief. Then anger slowly replaced the shock on her face. "You break into my room and ignore me?" That finally earned her a glance. Cold, measured, annoyingly calm. "You should be screaming," he said quietly. His voice was low and rough, carrying the weight of someone completely unafraid of violence. She hated that her pulse reacted to it. "I do not scream for thieves." A faint scoff left him. "Thief?" His eyes returned to the desk. "You people always choose the prettier words for yourselves." Her expression darkened immediately. "You people?" The stranger suddenly pulled open a hidden compartment beneath the desk. His movements paused. There it was. A thin, dark ledger wrapped in black cloth. The object he had crossed half the capital to find, even through the mask. She saw the shift in him immediately. Focus. Relief. Danger. He grabbed the ledger, and she moved without thinking. Wait. Before he could react, she snatched it from his hand and stepped backward. His eyes sharpened instantly. For the first time since entering the room, he looked genuinely irritated. "Give it back." "No. You have no idea what that is." "And you do?" Another step backward. The stranger moved toward her slowly now, not rushed, not frantic. But there was something dangerous in the way his broad figure approached through the candlelight. She swallowed despite herself. He stopped directly in front of her, close enough now that she could smell rainwater. Cold night air. Steel. Last chance, he said quietly. Instead of answering, she shoved the ledger beneath the layers of her robe, hidden against her body. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. His gaze dropped briefly, then lifted back to her face, and for the very first time, the masked intruder looked slightly stunned. A breath escaped her, part victory, part panic. "You barbarian," she whispered. Something dangerously close to amusement flickered in his eyes. Then, voices exploded outside the room. "Search the western wing! Someone's inside!" Lantern light flashed beneath the doors. The woman's eyes widened. The stranger muttered something under his breath, then looked back at her. "You are unbelievably troublesome." Before she could react, he grabbed her wrist. The world lurched violently, and suddenly she was being pulled across the balcony into the freezing rain. "What are you doing?" "Quiet. You can't just—" She twisted violently in his grip, striking against his chest with both fists. "Let me go!" "That seems inaccurate, considering I already have." His arm suddenly locked around her waist, strong, unyielding. Before she could scream again, he leapt across the gap between rooftops. The world dropped beneath her. Wind, rain, darkness. And despite herself, her hands instinctively grabbed onto him. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "You can let go now," he said dryly. Her face burned with anger. "I hate you!" "You met me 30 seconds ago, and it was enough." A low sound escaped him, not quite a laugh, but close. Then shouts erupted behind them. Guards, more lanterns, more footsteps. The entire estate was waking up. The masked man's expression hardened immediately. His grip tightened around her waist. "Hold on. I would rather throw myself off this roof. That can still be arranged." And then he jumped. Cold air tore violently through her lungs as the world dropped beneath them. For one terrifying second, there was nothing beneath her except darkness and rain. Then, his boots slammed against the stone street below, hard, controlled. One arm wrapped tightly around her waist as he absorbed the impact effortlessly. The other braced briefly against the wall beside them. Solid, steady, as though carrying kidnapped women through the capital at midnight was a perfectly ordinary inconvenience. She realized with horror, she was still clinging to him. Both hands twisted tightly into the dark fabric near his shoulders, warm beneath the rain. Strong. His eyes flickered downward briefly. Of course he noticed. Finished panicking? Her face burned instantly. "I wasn't panicking! You nearly killed me!" That was the intention. A low sound escaped him again, not quite laughter, but close. Then, there! Shouts exploded somewhere behind them. Lantern light burst across the street as guards flooded out from the estate gate into the rain. The stranger's expression hardened immediately behind the mask. No more amusement. Only focus. His hand tightened around her wrist. "Run." "I am not running with you. You already jumped off a roof with me. Your dignity did not survive that experience. You insufferable." He pulled her sharply forward before she could finish. Rain hammered against the narrow stone alleys as they disappeared deeper into the sleeping capital. She stumbled twice, trying to keep pace with him. The man moved too quickly, too confidently, like he knew every hidden corner of the city better than its own guards. "You walk like an angry duck," he muttered suddenly. She nearly choked. "What did you just say to me?" "You heard me." "I hope they catch you." "You continue saying that while following me voluntarily." "I am being dragged." "Details." She glared murderously at the side of his face. Arrogant criminal. Infuriating criminal. And somehow still unbearably composed while half the city hunted him through the rain. The streets gradually thinned around them. The lanterns became fewer. The walls lower. Soon, the massive outer gates of the capital appeared faintly through the darkness ahead. Closed for the night. 2 guards stood beneath the rain-soaked watchtower. The stranger slowed slightly. Thinking. Calculating. Then suddenly, he pulled her sideways into the shadows, before either guard could notice them. Her back collided sharply against the cold stone wall behind her. His body immediately blocked her from view. Close, far too close. Rainwater dripped slowly from loose strands of dark hair hanging beside his face. She could smell cold night air, wet fabric, steel, and beneath all of it, him. One guard laughed loudly near the gate. Another complained about the storm. The stranger remained completely still in front of her. His chest rose slowly with each calm breath. Meanwhile, her own pulse had become completely traitorous. The guards eventually moved away. The stranger finally stepped back. Instantly colder, without his body shielding hers from the rain. "Move," he said quietly. She hated how calm he always sounded. Beyond the walls of the capital, the forest stretched dark and endless beneath the fading storm. Hidden there between the trees, a black horse waited silently beside an old abandoned shrine. Of course, he had prepared everything. "You planned this entire thing?" "No." "You accidentally prepared a horse?" That part was planned. Before she could react, he lifted her effortlessly onto the saddle, again. "You cannot continue doing that. You are surprisingly easy to carry. I despise you. You repeat that often." He climbed onto the horse behind her in one smooth motion. His chest pressed briefly against her back as he grabbed the reins. Warm. Solid. Too close. Again. The horse surged forward instantly. Rain-soaked trees blurred around them as they disappeared deeper into the forest. For a long while, neither of them spoke, only hoofbeats. Rain, wind, moving through the dark mountains beyond the road. Eventually, her voice came quieter this time. "Who are you?" Silence. Then, "A man having a very inconvenient night." "That is not an answer." "It is the only one you're getting." She frowned. "Then what do you even want with me?" At that, his eyes darkened slightly. "The ledger." Of course. Everything returned to that stupid ledger, hidden safely beneath the layers of her robe. Still there, still his problem. Good. She leaned back slightly against the saddle. "You are never getting it back." A pause. Then quietly, "We'll see." The horse continued deeper into the mountains. The rain had weakened by the time they finally left the capital behind. Only a cold mist lingered between the trees now, drifting low across the narrow mountain path. The horse moved steadily beneath them. Silent. Certain. She sat stiffly in front of him with her arms folded tightly across her chest. Still furious, still soaked, still kidnapped, and somehow, still painfully aware of the warmth of his body directly behind hers. His hands held the reins loosely on either side of her waist. Calm, steady, infuriatingly calm. The sound of distant water echoed somewhere through the mountains. Birds had begun waking with the approaching dawn, and for the first time since this nightmare began, the world felt strangely quiet. Then suddenly, the horse slowed, her eyes lifted. A wooden gate emerged through the morning fog ahead. Not a fortress, not a military camp. A village. Small wooden houses rested between towering pine trees. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys. Lanterns still glowed faintly beneath the fading darkness. And people, actual people, were already awake. A woman carrying baskets froze mid-step, then blinked. "Chief?" Another villager looked up from repairing a cart. A grin immediately spread across his face. "You're back!" More voices followed almost instantly. "Chief returned! Open the gates! Someone tell Elder Ren?" Her eyebrows pulled together slowly. "Chief?" The horse finally stopped near the entrance, and before she could fully process anything, he swung down from the saddle smoothly, effortless. Rainwater dripped from the ends of his dark hair as he turned back toward her. Then finally, his hand reached up and removed the black mask from his face. She forgot how to breathe. For one dangerous second, she simply stared. Because this was not the face of some brutal mountain criminal. Sharp jaw, wet dark hair falling loosely around his face. Those ridiculous light brown eyes now fully visible beneath the dawn light. Beautiful. Actually, unfairly beautiful. Her expression betrayed her immediately. And of course, he noticed. One eyebrow lifted slightly. "You look disappointed." Her face burned instantly. "I am not disappointed." You are still a criminal. And yet you stopped yelling for help several hours ago. That is because your village appears to contain 80 people. 93. That was not the point. Something suspiciously close to amusement flickered briefly across his face again. Then, without warning, he reached up toward her. She flinched immediately. His hand paused. One long second passed between them. Then, without another word, he stepped closer again and reached up toward her. "What are you doing now?" "Trying to prevent you from falling off the horse. I would rather." Too late. His hands closed firmly around her waist, and before she could protest, he lifted her down effortlessly, like she weighed absolutely nothing. Her breath caught slightly as her shoes finally touched the ground, far too close again. Rainwater still clung to the dark strands of hair framing his face. Then quietly, "You have leaves in your hair." Her entire body went still, because his fingers were suddenly very close to her face. Careful. Slow. He removed the leaf tangled beside her ear, then stepped back again like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, her pulse had completely lost its mind. Again. "You're staring," he said calmly. "I hate you. You mention that often. I'm trying to make sure you remember it." That stupid sound again. Not quite laughter, but close enough to make her irrationally angry. The village gates opened wider behind them. Several villagers were openly staring now, especially at her. Especially at the fact their terrifying leader had returned carrying a beautiful noblewoman out of the mountains before sunrise. One older woman gasped dramatically. "Oh heavens!" Another man whispered. "Did he kidnap a wife?" Her head snapped toward them instantly. "I heard that." The villagers immediately pretended to become extremely busy. Cowards. The masked man. No, the unmasked criminal beside her exhaled slowly, then looked back at her. "Come. I would rather perish. You said that already, too. And I meant it sincerely." He turned without another word and started walking through the gates, leaving her standing there. Just standing there. Wet. Cold. Completely stranded in the mountains with no horse, no guards. No idea where she even was. She stared at his back in disbelief. Then at the enormous forest surrounding the village. Then back at him again. "You're doing this on purpose." His shoulders moved slightly. A laugh. That was definitely a laugh. Her eyes narrowed murderously. and after one final glare, she followed him into the village. Morning sunlight filtered softly through the mountain fog by the time she finally realized one horrifying truth. No one here intended to rescue her, not one person. The villagers moved around her naturally, comfortably, as though bringing home kidnapped noblewomen before breakfast was somehow a completely normal event. Children ran through the muddy paths laughing. Women carried baskets between wooden houses. Some men repaired fences near the edge of the forest. And somehow, everyone seemed strangely fond of him, which made absolutely no sense. "You should stop glaring at people," a voice said lazily behind her. She turned instantly. He stood nearby beneath the wooden awning of one of the larger houses, now dressed in dry black robes. His sleeves were still rolled loosely beneath his elbows, dark hair tied back properly again. No mask. That face was still deeply irritating. "How unfortunate," she replied coldly. "I was hoping the mountain air would improve your personality." "It improved yours slightly." "It did not." That sound again. That stupid almost laugh. She hated it. Probably. An older woman suddenly appeared beside her carrying folded fabric. "Poor thing," the woman sighed sympathetically. "You must have been terrified." "I was kidnapped." "Yes, but gently." Her jaw dropped open. The old woman ignored her entirely and shoved the clothes into her arms. "Go wash before you catch your death." "I am not staying here long enough to wash." "You smell like rainwater and horse." The woman walked away before she could recover from the assault. Meanwhile, he looked deeply entertained. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "You are enjoying this far too much. You are adjusting surprisingly well. I would rather throw myself off a mountain." "You continue threatening that despite standing beside several mountains." She stared at him. He stared back calmly. Then suddenly, "Who exactly are you?" The teasing disappeared from his expression almost immediately. Not fully, but enough. A quieter silence settled between them. "Finally," he answered. "Shen Wujin." The name hit harder than expected, because she knew that name. Everyone knew that name. The Ghost of Black Pine. Leader of the mountain bandits terrorizing corrupt officials across the northern provinces. Wanted in 3 cities. Blamed for countless robberies. Rumored to be merciless. Dangerous. Impossible to catch. Her eyes widened slightly. "You are Shen Wujin?" "So I have been told." "That is not amusing." "No. Usually it is." She folded her arms tightly. "You rob officials. Corrupt officials. You still rob them. You say that while your father owns enough silver to feed entire provinces." Her expression hardened immediately. "He's not my father." The words came out sharper than intended. Silence followed instantly. Even he seemed slightly surprised. She looked away first. Rainwater dripped quietly from the roof beside them. Then finally, "My mother worked in the minister's household," she said quietly. "She died when I was young." His expression remained unreadable. The minister's wife could not have children, so eventually he raised me beside the household, as though I belonged there. But you did not. "No." Something cold flickered briefly behind her eyes. "I was useful." The teasing in his face had vanished completely now. "He educated me. Taught me languages, politics, accounting." Her eyes narrowed faintly. "And apparently kept very dangerous ledgers hidden inside his daughter's room." His gaze sharpened slightly. "There it is." "What?" "The real reason you broke into my room. The ledger belonged to your minister." Former minister. He looked at her carefully now. Meaning? He resigned 3 months ago. That finally caught his full attention. He resigned after several shipments disappeared near the western trade routes. Realization slowly settled across his face. The silver caravans. Yes. She watched him closely now. You thought he was still controlling them. His jaw tightened faintly. Meaning, he had been working with outdated information. Interesting. For the first time since meeting him, she realized something important. Shen Wujin was dangerous, but not cruel. And somehow, that felt worse. Because cruel men were easy to hate. Meanwhile, someone shouted excitedly from across the village, "Chief, we caught fish!" Instant chaos followed. Several villagers rushed toward the center fire pit laughing loudly. Someone uncorked wine. Another started dragging wooden tables outside. Her eyebrows lifted slowly. "What is happening now?" One of the younger men grinned. "Celebration." "For what?" "You survived being kidnapped." Her eye twitched. Shen Wujin looked suspiciously amused again. "I dislike every single person here." "That is progress?" "How is that progress?" "You stopped threatening murder. Temporarily." Again. That almost laugh. And somehow, to her growing horror, she was beginning to like hearing it. Black Pine Village became dangerous for her in the quietest possible ways. Not because of the mountain bandits, not because she was trapped, but because slowly, without permission, it had started feeling warm, comfortable, alive. And worst of all, he was everywhere. She noticed him constantly now, helping repair roofs after rainstorms, carrying sacks of grain for elderly villagers, sharpening blades beside the fire with his sleeves pushed carelessly to his elbows, laughing quietly with the men during evening meals. That rare laugh always surprised her, because every time it happened, he looked younger somehow, less haunted, which was deeply unfortunate for her peace of mind, especially because she had also started noticing entirely unacceptable things, like the way his wet hair fell loose around his face after training, or how unfairly broad his shoulders looked beneath dark robes, or the veins in his forearms when he tightened saddle straps, or, "Are you staring again?" Her entire body jerked violently. He stood beside the horse pen watching her calmly, annoyingly calmly. "I was not staring." "You are unbearable. And yet you continue looking." "I am planning your murder." "That sounds serious." "It is." The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. That almost smile again. It was becoming a problem. A terrible problem. Several days later, she accidentally walked into the bathing room behind the eastern cabins. Steam drifted thickly through the wooden space, and there, sitting inside the large cedar bath, was him. Her soul immediately left her body. For one catastrophic second, neither of them moved. Water glistened across his shoulders, dark hair damp and loose around his neck. One powerful arm rested lazily against the edge of the bath, and those impossible light brown eyes lifted directly toward her, slowly, calmly. "You know," he said after a long pause, "most people knock first." Her brain completely stopped functioning. She spun around instantly. "I did not see anything." "That is unfortunate." "I am very impressive." Her face nearly combusted. Behind her, she heard it. That low laugh, fully audible this time. The criminal was laughing at her. "I despise you." "You mention that often." She stormed out immediately and walked directly into Elder Wren carrying towels. The old woman blinked once, then glanced knowingly toward the bathhouse, Oh, there is no oh. Why was everyone in this village impossible? That evening, the entire village gathered around the central fires again. Music echoed softly through the trees. Children ran laughing between lanterns. Several men had returned from a successful raid against a corrupt tax convoy. Food covered nearly every wooden table now. Wine flowed freely, and for the first time since arriving, she found herself smiling, actually smiling. A little girl suddenly grabbed her hand excitedly. "Come dance." "I absolutely will not." 5 minutes later, she was somehow dancing badly beside half the village. Humiliating, completely humiliating. Laughter echoed around her. Even she started laughing eventually. And across the firelight, his eyes found hers. The noise around them seemed to disappear strangely after that. He stood leaning against one of the wooden posts near the fire, watching her quietly. No teasing now. No smirk. Just that steady look that somehow always made her pulse forget basic human behavior. Then slowly, his gaze dropped briefly toward her smiling mouth before lifting back to her eyes. Heat rushed instantly into her face. Oh no. Oh, that was very bad, 'cause she understood that look. And worse, he knew she understood it too. The little girl tugged her sleeve again. "Your face is red. I'm going to throw myself into the fire." "That seems dramatic." Her head snapped toward him instantly. He had appeared beside her without warning again. Infuriating man. "You walk too quietly. You complain about my existence with impressive consistency. You deserve consistency." That dangerous, almost smile appeared again. Then, very gently, his fingers brushed something from her sleeve. Ash from the fire. Such a tiny touch. Barely anything. But her entire body still reacted instantly, and his eyes noticed that too. Of course they did. The silence between them shifted, changed. Something warmer now. Something neither of them seemed entirely prepared for. Then suddenly, one of the men shouted loudly from across the fire, "Chief! Stop staring at her before the entire village loses money betting on when you kiss." The entire celebration exploded into laughter. Her soul left her body for the second time that week. Meanwhile, he looked completely unbothered. "I will kill all of you." "No, you won't." "Probably not," another villager agreed. Elder Wren sighed dramatically beside her. "At least your children will be beautiful. I am leaving this village. You said that 3 days ago, too." Her betrayal was complete. Every single person here had betrayed her, including her own heartbeat. The next morning, she went alone to the river outside the village carrying wooden buckets. The cold mountain water rushed loudly over smooth stones beneath the morning sunlight. Quiet. Peaceful. For once, her thoughts finally slowed. Until branches snapped somewhere behind her. Her body stiffened immediately. 3 men emerged silently between the trees. Black clothing. Swords. Not villagers. Danger. Real danger. One of them spoke coldly. "The minister sends his regards." Her blood turned to ice. "No! No! No! No!" The first blade flashed toward her. She stumbled backward instantly, heart slamming violently against her ribs. Then suddenly, steel collided violently against steel. A familiar figure stepped between them, fast, lethal, terrifying. Him. His sword moved like lightning beneath the morning sun. One attacker crashed hard against the rocks. Another barely blocked in time. She had never seen him fight seriously before. Now she understood why entire provinces feared his name. Powerful. Controlled. Merciless when necessary. One of the assassins lunged toward her desperately. Strong hands suddenly grabbed her waist, pulling her sharply backward against a solid chest. "Stay behind me." His voice had gone dangerously calm. The final attacker made one desperate decision. If he could not kill her, then he shoved her violently toward the river. Cold water swallowed her instantly. The current dragged hard beneath the rocks. Her head struck water, once, twice, then suddenly, strong arms wrapped around her beneath the surface. He pulled her upward immediately. She gasped violently against him as they stumbled onto the rocky riverbank, completely soaked. Breathing hard, water streamed from dark strands of hair across his face. One arm still held tightly around her waist, as though he had no intention of letting go. Not yet. Her body started shaking suddenly, not from cold, from realization. Her voice broke. They really tried to kill me. Something fierce darkened instantly behind his eyes. Not pity, not surprise, anger. For her. And somehow, that hurt worse, because until now, some part of her had still hoped her former family cared whether she lived or died. A broken sound escaped her throat before she could stop it. Then suddenly, his hand moved gently against the back of her head, pulling her against him. Careful, protective. And for the first time since this entire disaster began, she let herself collapse into his arms. Completely. Cold river water still clung to their clothes long after the attack ended, but neither of them moved. Not immediately. She remained pressed against Shen Wujin beneath the trees, shaking quietly in his arms. And for once, the man who feared absolutely nothing looked uncertain. Not about danger, not about blood, about her. Because he knew how to fight, how to survive, how to kill. But this? Holding a trembling woman against his chest while she tried not to break apart completely. That felt far more dangerous somehow. Carefully. His hand moved once against the back of her head. Slow. Gentle. "It's all right," he murmured quietly. The words barely sounded like him. "They really wanted me dead." Her voice cracked softly against his chest. He closed his eyes briefly, because hearing the pain in her voice awakened something violent inside him. Not rage for himself, for her. "They will not touch you again." The certainty in his voice finally made her look up at him. And there it was again, that unbearable steadiness in his eyes, as though once Shen Wujin decided something, the world itself would need permission to change it. Her breath caught softly, then suddenly, his fingers brushed beneath her chin, lifting her face slightly. Rainwater still clung to her lashes. "You should stop crying," he said quietly. "I'm not crying." That stupid almost laugh again. Even now, a broken laugh escaped her unexpectedly, and the moment it did, his expression softened, only slightly. But enough. Enough for her heart to completely betray her again. Then slowly, his thumb brushed once beneath her eye, wiping away the remaining tear. Neither of them breathed properly after that, because suddenly, they were standing far too close again. His hand still beneath her chin, her fingers still tangled weakly in the front of his robes, and his eyes, those impossible light brown eyes, had lowered toward her mouth again. Dangerous, very dangerous. She should step away, immediately. Instead, she stayed exactly where she was. A terrible decision. Then quietly, Meilin. Her entire body froze, because it was the first time he had said her name like that. Softly, like something precious. The look in his eyes after saying it nearly destroyed her completely. Then suddenly, Voices echoed faintly through the trees behind them, villagers searching for them. The moment shattered instantly. He stepped back first. Of course he did. Infuriating self-control. Meanwhile, she could still barely breathe. The truth surfaced completely 3 nights later. The ledger contained everything. Stolen grain shipments, bribed officials, false famine reports. Entire villages starved while wealthy ministers filled hidden vaults with silver. And buried beneath all of it, her former family's names, including the order issued after her disappearance. If recovery impossible, eliminate the girl. No witnesses, no loose ends. The room fell completely silent after Elder Wren finished reading. Her hands trembled slightly around the edge of the table, not from surprise, from finality. Because now, there could no longer be excuses, no misunderstandings, no hope left to protect. One of the villagers cursed quietly beneath his breath. Another looked horrified. He raised her. Shen Wujin's expression remained unreadable, but his jaw tightened faintly. He never intended to kill me before, Meilin whispered quietly. The room stayed silent. Then slowly, understanding settled across her face. He only decided after the ledger disappeared. Her voice sounded distant now. He realized I may have seen something. Another villager muttered darkly. And the officials above him panicked. She laughed once softly, a terrible sound. So that is all I was worth. Shen Wujin moved before anyone else could speak. He reached across the table quietly and removed the ledger from her trembling hands. Enough. No speech. No pity. Just that calm, protective gesture. And somehow, that nearly hurt more, because no one had ever protected her before. Not once. The next raid happened 4 days later. This time, she did not argue when Shen Wujin prepared to leave, but she hated the feeling anyway, especially watching him tighten his sword belt beneath the dawn light. Especially the sight of his rolled sleeves exposing strong forearms marked by faded scars. Especially the way his eyes kept finding hers before he mounted his horse. Like he wanted to say something, but couldn't. "You are staring again," he said calmly. "I am memorizing your face in case you die." That is surprisingly romantic. It was meant as an insult. Then suddenly, his hand reached out. 2 fingers brushed lightly beneath her chin. Barely there, but enough to send her entire heartbeat into chaos again. "I will come back," he said quietly, and before she could answer, he rode into the mountains with his men, leaving her standing there beneath the morning mist, completely doomed. Night fell, and he still had not returned. The villagers had stopped smiling hours ago. Lanterns glowed nervously throughout the village. Every sound made her chest tighten. Then finally, voices erupted near the gates. People rushed forward immediately. Her body moved before thought could catch it. Several men emerged from the darkness, supporting someone heavily between them. Her breath stopped. Shen Wujin's head hung low between his men's shoulders. Blood stained the front of his black robes. One of his arms hung uselessly at his side. For one horrifying second, he did not move at all. Her heart nearly stopped. "Shen Wujin!" His eyes opened slightly at the sound of her voice, still conscious. Barely. Relief hit so violently she almost collapsed. One of the men spoke quickly. "He took the blade protecting one of the younger riders." Of course he did. Of course this impossible man nearly got himself killed saving someone else. The villagers helped carry him inside immediately. But throughout all of it, His weak grip still found her wrist once, as though searching for her instinctively, and he did not let go until they reached his room. Rain tapped softly against the wooden windows later that night. Lantern light flickered warmly across the room. Shen Wujin sat shirtless near the edge of the bed, while she carefully unwrapped the blood-stained bandages around his ribs. Her hands trembled slightly. Not from fear of blood. From him. From the dangerous awareness of how close they suddenly were. Fresh scars crossed warm skin beneath the lantern light. His breathing stayed calm despite the pain. Meanwhile, hers absolutely did not. "You are frowning," he murmured quietly. "You were stabbed. A minor inconvenience. You nearly died." She shot him a furious look. "You're impossible. And yet here you are." Infuriating man. Carefully, she pressed clean cloth against the wound again. His jaw tightened faintly this time. A tiny reaction. But she noticed. Of course she noticed. "Does it hurt badly?" His eyes lifted toward her slowly. Then, after a pause, "Less now." Her breath caught softly, because he was not talking about the wound anymore. The silence shifted instantly. Warmer now, dangerously soft. She became suddenly aware of the heat of his skin beneath her fingertips, how close his face was, the way his gaze had lowered toward her mouth again. And worst of all, he was looking at her like she mattered, really mattered. Slowly, his hand lifted, fingers brushing gently against her wrist, then higher, along her arm. Careful, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. A terrible decision. Their foreheads nearly touched now. Neither of them seemed capable of breathing normally anymore. "Meilin," he said quietly. Just her name. But somehow it sounded like surrender. Her fingers tightened unconsciously against his shoulder. And that was the final thing that destroyed whatever restraint remained between them. His lips met hers slowly, softly, like he had wanted to do this for far too long already. The kiss deepened carefully after a heartbeat. Warm, unsteady, real. And when she kissed him back, he made the quietest broken sound against her mouth, as though she had just ruined him completely. Honestly, she suspected the feeling was mutual. Several days later, the final evidence hidden inside the ledger reached the capital anonymously. Names leaked, silver trails exposed, officials arrested one after another. And for the first time in years, the people responsible finally began falling. Meanwhile, Black Pine Village remained hidden safely within the mountains, peaceful again. One quiet evening, Meilin stood near the village gates, watching the sunset spill gold across the trees. Footsteps approached behind her slowly, familiar footsteps now. Shen Wujin stopped beside her, close enough for warmth, not touching. "Not yet." "You're thinking too loudly again," he murmured. "I was deciding something." "That sounds dangerous." "It probably is." He turned slightly toward her, waiting, and after one long moment, she finally smiled softly. "I think." Her fingers slipped slowly into his hand. Warm. Certain. "I stopped belonging anywhere else a long time ago." For once, Shen Wujin had absolutely no sarcastic response ready, which might have been the most shocking thing of all. Instead, his fingers tightened quietly around hers. And beneath the fading mountain light, she realized something extraordinary. For the first time in her life, she was exactly where she wanted to be. Several weeks later, Black Pine Village no longer felt unfamiliar. The mountain paths had become familiar beneath her feet. She knew which villagers cheated at cards, Which children stole fruit before dinner? Which rooftops leaked during rainstorms? And unfortunately, she also knew exactly where Shen Wujin disappeared whenever he wanted peace and quiet, which was how she found him now. Again, he sat atop one of the higher wooden watch platforms overlooking the forest below. Late evening wind moved softly through the pine trees around him. The sunset painted gold across the mountains, and somehow, even from a distance, he still looked unfairly beautiful, deeply irritating. You disappeared. His eyes lifted toward her lazily. You found me anyway. That was the unfortunate part. That sound again. She climbed onto the platform beside him carefully before sitting down across from him. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence between them had changed now. No longer tense, no longer uncertain, comfortable, warm. Then quietly. "You are thinking too loudly again," he murmured. She narrowed her eyes immediately. "I hate when you say that. You do it often." "I do many things often." "Yes, threatening murder, for example. That remains a valid hobby." A quiet laugh escaped him, real this time, not hidden, not restrained. And somehow, that sound still affected her embarrassingly every single time. The village lanterns glowed softly below them now, warm light beneath the darkening mountains. Home. Her chest tightened slightly at the realization. Then, softly, "I received another letter today." His gaze shifted toward her immediately. No tension, no anger, just waiting. "The capital officially closed the investigation against me." Silence settled briefly. "The minister and the others were arrested weeks ago," she continued quietly. "There is nothing left there for me anymore." His expression remained calm, too calm, but she noticed the slight tightening in his shoulders anyway, as though some part of him still expected her to leave eventually. Idiot. Slowly, she moved closer across the wooden platform. His eyes followed her immediately. Careful now. Attentive. Always attentive with her. Then gently, her hand slipped into his. Warm fingers immediately closed around hers instinctively, like they belonged there now. Maybe they did. "I already told you," she murmured softly. "I stopped belonging there a long time ago." For once, Shen Wujin had absolutely no response ready. A historic moment. She looked deeply pleased with herself. "You finally lost an argument. I'm recovering from the shock. Good." His thumb brushed slowly across her knuckles. Small, tender, but somehow more intimate than anything else. The wind shifted softly around them. Then suddenly, "Chief?" Both of them looked down instantly. One of the villagers stood below, grinning shamelessly. "Elder Ren says if you two keep staring at each other dramatically instead of eating dinner, she will personally come drag you down here." Meilin covered her face immediately. Somewhere beside her, Shen Wujin actually laughed. Fully laughed. Traitor. The villager shouted one final thing before running away. "And she says stop making hard eyes at each other in public." "I'm leaving this village," Meilin muttered. "You said that months ago, too. I mean it sincerely this time." Infuriating man. She turned toward him immediately to continue arguing, and he kissed her before a single word could leave her mouth, completely without warning. Her breath caught instantly. One strong hand closed firmly around her waist, pulling her flush against his body so suddenly her heart nearly stopped. The other lifted gently beneath her chin, holding her there, steady, certain. And this kiss felt nothing like the first one. This one was deeper, hungrier. Weeks of tension finally breaking apart all at once, every stolen glance, every almost touch, every dangerous moment between them burning suddenly into something impossible to ignore anymore. Her fingers tightened instinctively into the front of his robes as he pulled her even closer against him. Warm, solid, completely overwhelming. And somewhere beneath the fading mountain light, between laughter echoing softly from the village below, between pine trees and lantern glow, between the quiet life neither of them had expected to find, Meilin realized something extraordinary. She had once believed Shen Wujin destroyed her life the night he stepped into her room. But standing here now, breathless in his arms beneath the mountain sunset, she thought perhaps he had actually saved it.